A very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the MergerWare webinar, the new M&A rubric for strategic deal making, trends in successful M&A integration. The webinar session will be for 30 minutes, followed by 15 minutes question and answer session. I, Prakya Bhatt, I handle customer success and global implementation at MergerWare. We have with us Richard A. Martin, the Chief Business Officer at MergerWare. Richard A. Martin comes with over 30 years of extensive business experience, mainly focused on the financial and M&A industry. He has been a public speaker of repute and has hosted several sessions, M&A mergers and acquisition webinars, and has been a panelist on several thought leadership initiatives at events across the globe. So without much delay, I will hand over the session to Richard. Thank you.
Thank you, Prakya. Hello, everybody. So today's discussion is going to be broad-ranging about how to hopefully achieve more successful deals. As many of you know, M&A deal failure rates continue to be too high. In our survey that we ran, more than half failed to achieve expected results. And deal makers need to find ways to improve their deal selection and to ensure better outcomes. Successful companies, successful acquiring companies, tend to address M&A more holistically. They engage key departments early when developing their investment thesis. They have a very efficient plan, and they enable team members to take ownership of the entire integration. They find the need for tools. They help them identify, pursue, and integrate deals faster, so they have better planning. They can tighten the due diligence plan. They can monitor their progress and keep teams on track, and they can spotlight risks, issues, and dependencies. So today we're going to discuss a number of things. We're going to review our survey results. We're going to talk about some strategies for achieving better outcomes, talk about developing rock-solid playbooks, enhancing your efficiency, and creating sustainable value through enhanced integration approaches. Before I kick off on the survey results, I want to mention that MergerWare's mission is to simplify and standardize the M&A process, elevating the value creation to the top of the integration strategy, and empowering teams to identify synergies and focus on operational efficiency from day one. We understand that successful deals are about capturing value and mitigating early risks, and we take the M&A process to the next level. And by employing our platform, deal makers can automate and systematize their processes across the firm, bringing greater transparency and control, and ultimately a greater success. We also provide a mechanism to capitalize on the knowledge gained across all deal teams by deploying an advanced continuously learning solution that significantly improves operational efficiency. So without further ado, let's get on to our survey results. Most of the deals that we've seen now are really more strategic or a combination of strategic and transactional, but very few are purely transactional. So I think the deals have have changed in their nature over time. If you look at the number of deals, however, that are expected to achieve their synergies and their goals, only 50 to 60% will not actually achieve their goals, which is not great. And so we hopefully will have some tools and ideas that will make this process better. One of the key pain points that people identify during the process is how to identify risk, issues, and dependencies. I think this is critical, as well as looking at when teams are engaged. Some teams are engaged pre-deal, a lot during the due diligence process, but not much during the integration process. And so I wonder if there's a correlation between these factors and what that means for deal making. So if we go into some strategies to improve deal outcomes, first thing I think is early preparedness. The best organizations plan and account for the need for tools to help them achieve goals, but they also plan for additional investments during the investment post-acquisition that will help them propel growth. They prepare for activities so that rather than react to opportunities, they can actually react fast to opportunities, which is a big difference. Unfortunately, acquire and figure it out later is not a great plan, but this is common, unfortunately, in some organizations, and probably many more than people like to admit. I think this highlights that it's critical to develop and use an M&A playbook and to have an integration management office who's highly involved in the process. The need for a plan to ensure that all actions are cohesive to the organization's outcome is kind of critical. So planning for it and then acquiring is the better plan. And then articulating the strategic purpose and direction is really important. So to help the organization understand the different ways value will be created and will be captured is going to be critical to a successful outcome. In our opinion, executives should prepare for post-deal integration very, very early in the deal life cycle. We found that the most successful companies are able to capture synergies effectively if they map them out in advance. They assign accountability for attaining those synergies and then monitor the progress. So this understands a really deep, a deep view of where the value can be created. So you have to use your experience of what's proven to work and where the risk lies, but also you have to have tools that allow you to identify them and share those with the organization so that everyone understands what works, where risks are, et cetera. Another thing to think about, we found, is that traditional deals tend to focus on cost-saving synergies, but revenue synergies also can drive value. So while cost savings typically tend to be, they cover the deal premium, they're one-offs, but identifying synergies up front allows you to continue to grow on the revenue side. And it also empowering teams to identify synergies in process allows for growth as well. So to drive M&A value creation, you have to also be able to drive M&A value capture. So striking the balance between the vision and strategic intent, as well as striking the balance between capturing value as you go, is a really important part of the process. So if we move on to our next slide, I think it's important to note that integration is really also about people. Many mergers that don't succeed are often the result of poor communication and the resulting low level of employee engagement because of that. I think many leaders face a challenge in moving from a state of confusion or distrust to a state of trust and effectiveness. I think we've all been in organizations where people tend to kind of go into a state of paralysis during some sort of merger or activity. So communication is a very important way to avoid that. And I think leaders have to stay mindful about the need to communicate clearly, frequently, and often. And also allows you to build trust and shape the desired behavior in the new organization. This also helps lead to avoiding those culture clashes during a deal. So failing to understand and consider the target's culture, their values, the style of management, how they communicate, how they approach innovation, tolerance for risk, et cetera, can have disruptive influences during integration if you don't understand them. So taking the steps to address those differences are critically important. Aligning messages to the key themes for each stakeholder group, making sure you retain the best people, and putting the right shared vision in front of everyone is really important. I think another factor to consider, which is quite interesting, is that M&A can be a really powerful agent for change. The merger integration process can spearhead the more comprehensive transformation for key operating elements for both the acquirer and the target. So being able to incorporate technical advances such as AI, machine learning, increased data analytics, you can basically improve the company's competitiveness during the integration rather than trying to figure it out after the fact. So M&A definitely can be a catalyst for new opportunities for the organization. Excuse me. Finally, I'd say that in order to improve deal outcomes, you have to just stay flexible. The original intent may change, is bound to change as new information is discovered and new market forces are applied. And being able to adapt will lead to, and apply new approaches will allow you to thrive. I think at the same time, you have to stay realistic and stay focused. You can't assume that cost synergies exist until you understand the target's business. And you have to focus on the deal rationale by setting your KPIs and align them to the deal and monitoring them on a regular basis. Those metrics should be pretty wide-ranging. They should be technical, they should be customer-oriented, financial, employee, et cetera, so that you have a strong view of what's happening in the organization and can take action when necessary. So let's move on to our next topic, which is developing a rock-solid playbook. Throwing out the old model, I think, probably not quite throw out your old model, but certainly I think you have to be prepared to change your model. Integrations can be exciting. They are very dynamic. They create lots of positive change when successful. But changing business models, new and more nimble competition, emerging technologies, all mean that you have to have the potential for a new approach. So you need to ask yourself, does your playbook tackle tomorrow's M&A challenges? The fast pace of change in most sectors require new integration strategies and new thinking about how you capture synergies. Corp dev executives have to also look outside their sectors to find new technologies, new customers, new talent, and new opportunities. So in order to do that, you have to usually go outside your comfort zone. The cost of doing so can be high. It's a very fast pace. Risks are high. So you have to have a process that you know is going to work for different opportunities. And so reviewing your playbook on a regular basis is really important. Making sure that it's fit for purpose. Filling the gaps, where you haven't thought about things are critical. And I think legacy companies need to rethink their target market and who their competition is. It's impossible to predict that, for example, Uber would be a competitive threat to car companies, for example. So at the end of the day, I think you have to make sure that your playbook is adaptable and changing is fit for purpose. We see a lot of companies updating their playbook and creating different playbooks for different integration models, different operating models. Large acquisitions tend to generate cost synergies because they can utilize the buyer's operating model quickly. But smaller acquisitions don't necessarily focus on cost synergies. They have to find other ways to achieve success. So for transformative deals, the company has merged its business with a large portfolio of brands. The synergies there were focused on cost, cutting overlap, distribution rationalization, and margin improvement. And so developing different plans for different operating models is critical to success. I think at the same time, you have to support your engine for innovation. So you don't want to stifle a target company's culture if they're doing things well. I think a deal-specific integration strategy can set the framework for what needs to be integrated now, what can be delayed, and what should remain separate for the foreseeable future. I think having different integration priorities based on the rationale for the acquisition will allow you to align your product roadmaps, will allow you to share back office or not, if it doesn't make sense, and to determine what assets should be kept or sold off immediately. So I think knowing why you're integrating the functions and activities helps you make better decisions and helps you maintain the growth engine you have now while supporting new opportunities going forward. I'd like to talk a little bit about driving sustainable value. Creating value during an M&A is obviously an imperative to long-term sustainable success. Consolidation in search for scale, cost synergies, and talent capability acquisition is apparent. It's happening all over the place. And the most successful organizations are always searching to complement and expand their core capabilities, and they're looking to gain a competitive advantage. The challenge, however, lies in creating value in the transaction while capturing value in a sustainable way that leads to long-term growth. So the role of the strategic intent is paramount in balancing both sides of the equation. Articulating that purpose and direction is critical because over time, you might lose sight of the purpose of the deal. If you fall short in some of the areas in organizational performance, having that vision and reminding yourself of it is absolutely critical, because you don't want old behaviors to persist. And if you don't pay constant attention to not only organizational performance, you may not be able to create the space for change. Excuse me. So a coherent M&A strategy strikes a good balance between the right vision and strategic intent, and regularly communicates that to reinforce the new organizational paradigm. Creating targeted and focused communication and sharing it at just the right time to the right people is of critical importance. As you seek to drive growth and scale, the economies of scale are often cited as a key component of M&A activity, but tend to mostly focus on financial implications rather than on a broader vision that includes strategic dynamics, people, technology, human resources, and organizational design considerations. If you focus on your deal, if you focus only on growth and scale, rather than a holistic business and organizational perspective, you might have some problems. And so you have to incorporate and weighed against financial considerations. Consider that any performance and goal shortfalls will present challenges that can put the overall strategic intent into question, and this is something that you have to plan for. So if things don't work, what is the plan? As you look to improve your bottom line and extract value from the integration of activities by combining or dismantling components, typically you have to articulate the strategy as well. It's a potentially delicate change rather, restructuring, closing of assets, etc. And so communicating this is critically important. So the ability to articulate the strategic imperatives is really critical for organizational alignment and to move all necessary pieces to and capabilities to avoid being held back. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about retaining talent as well as acquiring new capabilities. Retaining talent obviously is a critical component to success, and being able to retain an entire team, they're often cited as the reason for success. So it's important that, again, you address this early in the process and that you focus on the people as part of the organization. We'll come back to this as well. So let's talk a little bit about enhancing efficiency. I think it's important to invest in your process. We've found that companies that spend more time on the integration process have outperformed other companies that spend less. So there's two elements to this. One is planning early, building the right integration teams, organizing them early, but also investing in the tools so that you have the ability to integrate with maximum speed and reduce your errors and risks. We think that long-term growth depends on successful integration. So the days where integration could take a long time, a year, 2 years are pretty much gone. Things have to be done in a year or less. 18 months the most. And in order to do that, you have to have a really strong process, and leaders have to start working on the integration earlier. I think diligence needs have to go a little deeper and have to be done faster. And I think a critical piece is to utilize your past experience, both the successes and failures, to help you achieve targets. As we noted earlier, a substantial portion of deals fail to meet their synergy targets. I think the correlation shows that there's some things that could be done different. I think those who are more aggressive in setting targets, who set them early, who engage people in the organization early, tend to have greater success. I think in terms of also efficiency improvements allow you to reduce some duplication of activities. It allows you to focus on bottom line or top line synergies more successfully. And I think those who apply technology from one company without considering the other company didn't have very positive results. And so I think you need to look beyond simply what works in one organization and combine the best from both. So I'd like to sort of sum up here and then give Praki an opportunity to talk about some of the functionalities that we have that we think can help you achieve some of these goals. The first thing is that there's really no room for error. Soaring valuations and compressed timelines mean that you have to be able to react and act much faster and do so efficiently and effectively. Integration should fuel innovation, should inspire talent, and should be a catalyst for transformation for the company. And so there's very little room for error, so you have to be prepared. As I mentioned earlier, acquire and figure it out later is not really a good plan. Unfortunately, many companies probably don't want to admit this, but they adhere to that strategy, perhaps unwittingly. But the idea is that you have to really have a plan. If you have a plan up front, if you prepare early, then you're able to actually react quickly to opportunities rather than be reactive to market situations. So again, I stress early preparedness. I think being able to invest on the process and also be aware that you're going to have to invest after the integration as well, something that companies have to be aware of. Review your playbook, make sure it's fit for purpose, make sure it's ready to tackle tomorrow's challenges, and constantly adapt and improve the playbook by incorporating lessons learned, both successes and failures. Make sure you have a playbook that has the ability to address different operating models. Depending on the acquisition, you're going to have a different strategy. So have a flexible playbook, have different models. And finally, I just remind everyone to be flexible, to be realistic, and we believe we have some tools that can help you. So Pragya, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about our tools. If you want to hop back on.
Okay, thank you so much, Richard, for your insightful updates. Most of your findings, as I can tell the audience, comes from the quick poll that we ran amongst the participants. So thank you for your participation. I'll quickly sum up what MergerWare as a platform really has to offer in terms of a solution for a customized, personalized solution for M&A. The MergerWare M&A platform solution aims to bring a centralized collaborative platform for your M&A team. It is focused on deal management integration to mitigate risks and collectively deliver the overlaying objectives of the deal. The main focus of what we are offering is a new improved way of enabling work through a digital platform where information is all centralized and management is made that much easier. Within the platform, you will be able to define your integration project, plan priorly, track all your project processes, and be able to reduce significant underlying risks and ensure synergy creation. The platform solution within itself brings helps in the tracking of post-acquisition performance and reporting, and also facilitates transparency and a collaborative working environment by providing ample opportunities for communication and collaboration within the M&A teams that are working on it. It provides an overview and insight to key management for key decision taking by providing a bird's eye view of all the information and updates of the team and deal information at one shot. It helps management take key decisions at the spot of the time. Some of the key decisions, some of the key benefits of the platform include robust security features, role-based access control with inbuilt audit capabilities. We have the pre-deal benefits, which include an extensive playbook management feature where you can have your own playbook uploaded into the platform, but you can also have a customized playbook which we have inbuilt within the tool, which takes into account the M&A best practices. A multi-level VDR for storing and data and information with access controls and version control, which ensures that all your information is completely safe and secure. Buyer-seller communication and communication with external stakeholders involving absolute transparency and security and secrecy, a risk and issue tracker, and analytics and reporting. So reporting at various levels ensures that the management within a matter of seconds can get extensive pie charts, reports, graphs available for management level meetings in a matter of seconds. The post-deal benefits, as I re-emphasized, is on playbook management, project management, progress indicators with team communication and analytics and reporting. The top management reports, as you can see in the screen, gives you a bird's eye view of the various stages of the reporting that includes within your platform. So this pretty much sums up what MergerWare as a platform really has to offer. Now we would quickly like to address any questions that you might have had, which Richard can address. So Richard, I will have to ask you one of the questions from the audience.
Sure.
What steps, according to you, taken at the initial stages of the deal can ensure synergy creation? Often teams focus on processes rather than the larger picture. What is your opinion on this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first thing is really understanding the target organization's business. Right, you can't really create synergy if you don't understand what you're buying. And so I think that the planning process up front has to start with understanding fully the target's business, and then obviously understanding some of the priorities on your side, and then making that plan up front and engaging. I think this is the important part: engaging the right teams to help you determine where those synergies are. Is critical as well. So you can predefine some of the synergies you want to have. I think, but at the same time, you also need to utilize your understanding of the target company to identify synergies that you wouldn't normally think about, right? There may be unique situations unique to that industry or that organization that you have to look into. So I think that the steps you need to take first are getting the right people together and planning early. not waiting until an opportunity that sounds good or seems good presents itself, but actually having sort of an upfront view of what are the factors that will help your business grow, and what, and which includes why you're undertaking the transaction in the first place.
Yeah, thank you. There's another question. A lot of times in most M&A deals, we notice that a loss of key personnel is almost inevitable. What ways do you think you can cushion the risks associated with the loss of, senior management people? So, if it does happen, how do you handle such a risk associated with it?
I think that's a difficult question. I think what I would say is, one is that you want to reduce the fact that it happens at all, right? So, I mean, obviously you can't reduce that completely, but my advice would be to, one, ensure you communicate regularly and early with key talent. In my experience, I've seen this, and I'm sure many others as well, is that one of the biggest things that happen is that people don't know what's going on, and they assume the worst, right? And especially
Yes.
talented people tend to have a view of their own worth. And so if they don't understand the strategic vision, if they don't understand that they're potentially an important element of the organization going forward, then you run the risk of them leaving. And so my advice would be, one, is to understand the organization, their people. As I said, integration is about people. Understand those things up front. As you don't simply factor in the financials. Look at what the people are, who the people are, and who you want to retain. So have that plan. Communicate frequently, often, and honestly with people. That will help as well. And should the worst happen, then you have to replace them. But hopefully there will be a bench between the two organizations where you have backup. But my advice is to try as hard as you can to avoid the situation in the first place by doing the best job of communicating and understanding who you're working with.
Thank you so much, Richard. I think that makes a lot of sense, because a lot of people know that it's important, and communication is very pertinent within across teams. It's not just the senior management, but across different levels of employees, but often ignored point. So thank you. There's another point that we have from Bhavna Yadav. She says, how does the platform, that is the MergerWare platform, address the cultural differences between organizations? So how do we, as MergerWare, going to help address that?
I think that that's a good question. So I think no platform can, on an automated basis, bring two cultures together. I think that comes from a deep understanding of the organizations, their people, and a plan to unite them. However, there are tools that help you facilitate those processes of understanding the people, understanding the different cultural elements. You have to define those, and then ensuring that they're addressed alongside the other kinds of diligence and planning activities that you undertake. So I think a good platform, and our platform, allows you to create a solid plan and monitor, sign that plan and monitor progress against that plan to ensure the two cultures come together.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you, Richard. So if anyone has any other questions, okay, we have another quick question from Mark James. When you refer to invest in processes, do you mean the integration process or the business processes of the emergent organization?
Both. I think that there's, in my opinion, there's value to acquisitive organizations to invest in their own process for acquisitions, both tools and people, organization, and their playbook, their process. But at the same time, I think it's important to be aware that there may be additional investments necessary into the target organization to facilitate growth. So I really mean both. Is that be prepared that there may be additional investments required, small in nature, to achieve the synergies that you desire. So I think having the understanding that that may be necessary. You may decide not to, but that may be necessary is important.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much, Richard, and thank you everyone for joining us on today's session. The recording of the MergerWare webinar will be shared with you. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us and get in touch with us. We will be addressing them shortly. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.